everybody, welcome to String and Story and welcome to how to web a block. So webbing is a chain piecing technique that helps with accuracy. And I'm going to show you guys how I would web this block here together. And you can see I've laid out all my pieces. And I'm going to clip y'all into this handy phone holder and we will get started. So I made a short version of this video showing just a teeny tiny bit of this technique for my Instagram a couple of days ago, and there was some interest in a longer video. So I'm going to try very hard not to bump the camera as I'm working, and I'm going to walk y'all through this start to finish. Excuse me, I'm still suffering from a bit of a snuffly nose. Alright, so I'm starting by piecing together the first 2 units of each row. So as I showed you, I've got all of my pieces over here to my left, and each row is laid out in the order that those units go into this block. And you can see as I'm even lining this up that these pieces are not exactly the same size. That's part of why I started experimenting with this webbing technique, is because this is probably the most detailed piecing work I've ever done for this quilt. This is the Bonnie Hunter en Provence quilt. This was her mystery quilt at the end of 2016. And it's a gorgeous quilt, and I jumped on board because I hadn't done piecing like this before, and I wanted to use it as a learning experience. And you can see that some of these are not quite square, they didn't come out quite right, and a lot of that is because, oh, we're getting stuck. Hang on, let's see if we can get, there we go. Because I have been learning as I go, and so some of these have come out a little bit more accurately than others. And this webbing technique has helped overcome some of those irregularities from the progress my skill has made as I've been piecing. So, oh good, we avoided the little stuck corner that time. Y'all saw that on the 2 pieces back, that the corner got stuck as I started feeding it under, and it's because I didn't feed the next set under promptly enough. You gotta butt these pieces up together pretty close. Excuse me again. Okay, now you see I've reached the end. That was, there's 5 rows on this block, and that was the 5th unit right there. But rather than cutting my thread now and starting to do the next set, I'm going to go ahead and start piecing the next 2 units together and then cut this thread so that I don't have any issues with corner catching again. So this is now units 3 and 4 of the first row. And after I feed this under, I will take my scissors and I'm going to reach around behind here and snip this off. So this chain right here is the first 2 units of each row, and I'm just going to set it off to the side for now, and I'm going to continue piecing units 3 and 4 of each row. And I know that this is going to seem a little bit confusing as I go. You may want to start practicing this technique with something that doesn't have quite as many pieces. There are I think 30 units in this block. And basically the idea with webbing is that you want to break thread as rarely as possible. Now, for some of this, like what I'm doing right now, if I had wanted to be able to trim or cut that thread before starting units 3 and 4, I could have put a leader and ender unit under. I don't usually do leaders and enders on a regular basis. I just use the next bit of whatever else I'm working on and just kind of keep track in my head of everything I've got going. But if that's confusing to you, just poke another piece of fabric under there, and then you can break your thread and just keep going straight across. So, okay, this is now the last set of units 3 and 4. So under my machine, I have 1 chain of units 3 and 4. Ooh, see, I told you I might bump you. And then this chain over here is units 1 and 2. What I want to do now is I want to join these 2 sets. But again, don't want to break this thread yet. So I'm going to reach around behind and I'm going to cut off the first 2 sections, or the first 4. I'm going to open this up. So this is 3 and 4 of row 1, and I'm going to pair it with 1 and 2 of row 1. Now this means that on the very last row of this block, this unit 3 and 4, will have 1 less piece of webbing than the rest, but it'll be okay, since I don't have leaders and enders super handy. All right, so I just keep chain piecing. So I'm now piecing units 1 and 2 to units 3 and 4, and the seam falls between units 2 and 3. And then again, after I reach the end of that, I can reach back here and cut off this other one to be able to feed it back. Oops, sorry, I'm having trouble seeing around the camera. To be able to feed it back on the end. I'll just set it aside for the moment. All right, here we go. So the tricky part with this is you kind of have to be able to keep track. So this is row 2, and here's row 1. And again, pairing units 1 and 2 of row 2 with units 3 and 4 of row 2. And it's also worth noting, this is part of why I have a completed block, or if you're, have your pattern, you could have your pattern out, so that you can double check and make sure you're pairing all the right units together, because you certainly don't want to get that confused. So here's row 3, and it requires a little bit of fiddling around to keep those chains from getting too tangled. But as we move through this process, I think you'll see, first of all, that it's worth that little bit of fiddling. And you'll also notice I'm not having to do very much piecing. These are small little units. Did I say piecing? Pinning, I'm sorry. These are small little units. And those little threads are just going to keep everything together. So when it comes time to join rows, it will come together very quickly. Okay, now this is where, so this is units 1 and 2 of row 5. And here's units 3 and 4, because remember, I trimmed those off. So now I will just add that back onto the chain. And then I will break thread before I add, oh, I guess I'm sorry, I originally said that there were 30 pieces. There's 25 units in this block. I miscounted looking at the rows. So 25 units, 5 by 5. And that's not very lined up. Let's see if we can fix that. All right. So here I will break thread because I don't have any more pairs because it's an odd number. And I'll slide this down. And you can now see that I have, you can already see some of the webbing occurring between these rows, right? So now we're going to add the final units off on the side here. I like to stitch just a couple of stitches and then finish lining everything up nice and smoothly. Make sure any seams within the unit are lying flat, all of that. Now, for those of you that are familiar with Bonnie Hunter's fabulously intricate patterns, this may surprise you as being a Bonnie Hunter. I did my own color scheme because I'm a rebel like that. And it wasn't even really because I was trying to be a rebel. It's because I made a rule to myself that I had to work almost exclusively from my stash for this. But I tend to be a more modern quilter, so I wasn't sure how I would like this pattern. I just want to give a little holler to Bonnie. As someone who tends to work more modernly, I have really enjoyed working on this pattern, and I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. And I have no idea how your brain works like this, Bonnie, but you are phenomenal, and your creativity is magnificent. So thank you for creating a marvelous pattern like this, and for giving it away as a mystery and having it available for free for a while. This has been just a really wonderful learning experience for me. let's see, let's make sure I get this lined up right there. Okay. So thank you, Bonnie. I really appreciate this. All right, so here's my last one. So this block, as I get this lined up, which again, not perfect. So even with the webbing, these blocks are not coming out totally perfect because of existing accuracy issues that, like I said, are coming from me learning how to do this. But you know, here, I'm gonna lay this out next to the machine and then I'll take you guys off that stand again so I can show you the gorgeousness of this. All right, here we go. So this is now the block web. Now it almost looks assembled, as you can see if I scan back up there. So each of these are connected with threads. So what I will do now, and I'll spare y'all the agony of watching me have to press, so I'll just explain what's gonna happen from here. I will take this over to my machine. Let's flip it over so y'all can see the reverse. And I will press these rows going opposite directions, okay? So I will press this row to the right, left, right, left, right, so that these seams nest with each other. And I will do all of that without cutting any of these threads. The whole exercise with the webbing here is that you want these to stay because they're stabilizing this block and holding everything very neatly. So once it's all pressed, and I will starch it too because that's my jam, I will bring this back over to my machine and I will start at the top and I will fold this row down, and then these seams will nest like that, and I'll stick a pin at each of these seams that will nest so nicely after they are pressed, and I will sew those rows together. And I'll flip that back up and I will flip down for the next one. And I will repeat all the way down this row, or all the way down this block, and then the whole thing will be assembled. And I think you'll find that if you practice this and use it, that your blocks will come together much more smoothly. I was having a lot of warping issues with this center section in this block because when I made these, while I managed to spin my seams, I did not manage to get them to come out the right size. They're a little bit small, and it was tugging on the whole block and causing some warping. But on this block, you can see it lies much, much flatter. It's still not perfect. You can see how the tugging from here caused some extra fabric here. They're not, like I said, not perfect. It's not going to solve everything, but it definitely made a difference in how this block came together, and it just lies much flatter. And came together much more smoothly, and I found that I didn't have as many problems keeping my pieces in order using this technique. Because 25 units, that's a lot for a block. All right, guys, that's what I've got for today. I hope it's helpful, and I would love it if you left me feedback in the comments. You can find me on Instagram @stringandstory, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.